We have 2 weeks until remote ID is now official in the EU. And now to my assessment as to what I think of remote ID and what it means to use remote ID and to have remote ID in the EU. And I'm going to be comparing this to the US. And just to sum up before, spoiler alert, it's a joke. Hi everyone, Stephen from the Flyby guys, and we are talking about remote ID in the EU. Now, I've done my assessment on this and really kind of looked into remote ID and how we're using it and who is watching us, or if there's anyone watching us. And the only way I can describe remote ID in the EU is, well, homeopathy for drones.
Excuse me, 2 more homeopathic lagers, please.
Whoa, that's strong stuff.
Yes, homeopathy, you know, that little bit of something that you put into something and then you take it and then nothing ever happens. Well, that's what remote ID is like in the EU, because we put our operator ID into the UI of the drones of the controller, and that's it. Now the authorities have our remote ID. They do have our operator number, but they don't have our drone numbers, or they don't have our drone registration, because we don't register our drones here in Europe. We only register our own ID, and that's it, our operator ID. Not like in the US, where when you buy a drone and you want to add that to your list, you have to go into the FAA page and you have to fill out a form, and then you add, or you get a remote ID number, then you add that to your your account. Whereas here in Europe, we don't do that. We just have a drone and you link it to your operator ID and that's it. And they're not monitoring. I know that for a fact. They're not monitoring. And I know that they're not even planning to monitor, because they don't really care. They don't have the resources, they don't have the money, but they have to comply. So the compliance is everyone has to use remote ID, and that's fine. But like I said, it's almost like just, it's homeopathy. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't really mean anything, and it won't make a difference. So to sum up, remote ID in Europe is basically homeopathy, and we all know that homeopathy doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anyone any good, and it won't do you any harm. Like homeopathy, you take it, you can overdose on homeopathy, it still won't do you any harm, and that's exactly what it is when you put your operator ID in there. So I will be compliant. I will put my I'll put my operator ID into the system, and when I say the system, I mean the controller, because it's not going anywhere else. It's not being read. But this is the difference between what we have here in Europe compared to the US, is that it's completely different. So our drones are not being monitored. Our drones are not being registered. They don't know what we have. So how can they keep up with it? How that will change in the future, I don't know, but it's certainly not coming anytime soon. But, adding your, adding your operator ID in there is just like having a very strong homeopathy lager.
Whoa, that's strong stuff.
Fly safe.